What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be doing the ultimate S to F tier list for the weapons of Rust. This list is completely my opinion. If you agree or disagree with me, let me know down in the comments below, but let's get right into it. So starting off, we have the M92. Now, this gun used to be a lot more better in my opinion, but they recently, well, not recently, they nerfed it. You used to be able to shoot this thing as fast as you can click, and now it's nerfed, and that is not the case. It does do pretty good damage for shooting pistol rounds. You can't craft them at all, but I think it's a pretty decent firearm. But the fact that you can't shoot it as fast as you want, I think that's going to make it a C tier item. Now, next we have the Balti. The Balti is very expensive to craft, and compared to the L96, they're pretty similar. Ooh, this is a tough one for sure. The Balti is always a very fun gun. I think with the Balti, I'm gonna put it on a, and this is tough. I think I'm gonna put Balti on A tier for now. However, I might change that when I get to the L96. But Balti, it's one of my favorite firearms. Put a nice big 8x scope on it, even a 16 times. You can do some damage. It's a very useful gun, especially if you're taking like larger, small oil rig. All around a very, very fun gun to use. Next, we have the MP5. Now, MP5, in my opinion, I'm not a big fan of the MP5. I think the craft is very expensive. The damage is mediocre. The fire rate is also mediocre. As well as the recoil pattern. It's definitely out of control for no absolute reason. I think I'm going to put the MP5 a lot lower. I think MP5 might be a D, possibly even an E, when compared to some of the other SMGs that we'll get into later. I don't know if it's bad enough to put down on an E. I'm going to throw it down. I'm going to put it on the D for now. Okay, next we have the Python. The Python's actually one of my favorite pistols to use. It's got some pretty high damage. The craft is relatively cheap for what it is. And it's actually got some decent range. Like, you could almost use this thing as a sniper rifle. Like, if you could put an 8x zoom scope on it, you could definitely do some damage with it. You know, when compared to, like, if you're using a Python against a guy who has an AK, you're not really going to do too much. You're probably going to get your shit pushed in. So, I'm probably going to put the Python down with the M9 on the C level. It's a very fun gun to use if you know what you're doing, but mid to late wipe, not very good. Alright, next we have the compound bow. I've never been a fan of the compound bow. I think that having the stand still to shoot, like give you a nice powerful hit, is pretty useless. I think the compound bow is probably, I think compound bow might be an E class, because it's just like, for just the fact that you have to stand still to make the shot. Although there is one-tapping capabilities for people who are wearing, like, hazzies. I just don't think it's worth it. Like, I feel like if you use either the crossbow or the bow, you're going to have a better time landing those shots. Because it's like, if you charge the compound bow fully and you miss the shot and he realizes that you're there, then you're pretty much done for. Alright, next we have the custom SMG. Now, the custom, it's definitely up there on my favorite guns to use. It's got a very quick fire rate. The damage, it's a little laxum in the damage part, but it makes up for it in the rate of fire. I think the custom deserves a B. Next we have the nail gun. Now, the nail gun by itself would definitely be an F tier, but if you say this is early in the game and you know you have a bow or a crossy and you hit them with 1 or 2 shots, the nail gun's perfect to follow up with to finish them off. However, by itself, the nail gun is definitely an F tier. It does very minimal damage, and it's definitely not an optimal weapon to use. Next, we have the hunting bow. The hunting bow is definitely my favorite starter weapon. You know, when I first launch a wipe, I'm not going for a crossy or a compound bow. I'm definitely rocking with the classic hunting bow. I made many clips using the bow. I killed him! You had a Spaz! Outplaying people with guns, and it's a very good feeling. However, I don't know where I would put this on the list. Like, if I'm thinking early in the wipe, hunting bow is definitely up there, but mid to late wipe, it's probably going to be a C tier, maybe even a D tier, just because you're not going to be doing much. I'm going to keep it on the C tier just because I have joined wipes late, and I've been able to make plays on kids with AKs with a bow, and that's an amazing feeling. Next, we have the rocket launcher. Now, rocket PvP is something that is pretty frowned upon in Rust for some reason. I've never been very big on rocket PvPing, but if you do find yourself in a situation where you can use a rocket against a group of players raiding your base or something, I would definitely advise that. That would easily make it an S tier. It's very overpowered, especially if you have HV rounds and it's for raiding. However, I don't know if it deserves an S tier if you're just playing regularly. Like, no one's roaming with a rocket launcher expecting the rocket PvP, but it is a very good gun to use for base defense. I think I'm going to throw it up on the A tier. Next, we have the Yoka Pistol. Early in the wipe, it's not useful at all. This thing, you're playing the lottery every time you want to shoot this thing. Sometimes you'll smack the thing one time, and boom, your gun goes off. But sometimes you'll be there smacking it for like, and it still won't shoot. And it's very unreliable. And for that reason, I'm going to be giving it an F tier. I would not advise using the Yoka. It's just not a fun time. Okay, next we have the pump shotgun. The pump shotgun. Now, my least favorite thing about the pump shotgun is that it's extremely slow. Like the time it takes for you to actually pump each round, it's like, I think like 1.5 to 2 seconds. It seems like a short amount of time, but when you're in combat and you're sitting there pumping between shots, it's definitely gonna make it's gonna be what determines life or death. And it does very good damage at close range. Like, the shotguns in this game are extremely overpowered close range, but I think it's just drawn too far back with the how long it takes to pump. So I think that's going to be a C tier. All right, now we have my personal favorite gun, the AK. Now, the AK, an extremely expensive craft. The blueprint, extremely hard to acquire. It takes a lot of grinding. But I think that this gun is definitely worth it. It's worth every material you put into the craft, and it's worth the time acquiring. Because this thing, if you can manage the recoil, you will literally win any gunfight. I think AK is definitely an easy S tier. It's one of my favorite guns. I know that a lot of people are probably going to disagree with me for the reason that the recoil is just too much. I understand that. I still have problems with the recoil control to this day, and I have, so many hours on Rust. Next, we have the flamethrower. I don't even think I need to explain for this. Like, you can eco-raid with them, like burning down wood walls and doors, but like, I think we're just gonna do one of these. Next is a grenade launcher. I love the grenade launcher. It's a very fun gun to use for raiding and actually base defense. We've been in many scenarios where our bases have been saved by the use of grenade launchers because, you just have to shoot the HE rounds in closed corridors, and boom, you took out an entire squad because they don't know how to play the game right and like spread out. However, I would never find myself roaming with a grenade launcher. I think that's a very incredibly dumb thing to do. The HE rounds are great. Shotgun rounds are great, especially for base defense. And you can even use the smoke rounds. I've seen it being used in a lot of raids to block out windows and shoot down floors. I just don't think it's an overall easy gun to acquire. You can't craft them. And you also have to worry about getting the rounds for them. I think this is going to be a D tier item. Actually, no, I feel bad for the little grenade launcher. I almost don't want to do it. I think I'm going to put him up on the C. Alright, next we have the SemiAuto Pistol, also known as the P2. You can literally shoot this thing as fast as you can, as fast as you can click. The damage is a little laxsome, not as bad as the Revolver. I think the sap is definitely going to get a B tier because it's just such an easy craft, and for what it is, you could shoot as fast as you want. The ammo is extremely cheap, and it's an extremely cheap craft. I think that's definitely going to be a B tier item. The double barrel shotgun. Now the DB shotgun is probably my favorite shotgun in the game. Extremely great for door camping and getting rid of door campers. Lots of clips have been made with the DB.
Take a round back, boy.
It's an extremely cheap craft. The blueprint you can easily acquire. And if you're not using the buckshot, you could load in some slugs and start using that thing as a fucking sniper rifle. I think the shotgun, the DB shotgun, is definitely going to get a B tier. Now, the Revolver. This thing is probably going to be your best friend early wipe, like on the first day or two. But anything past that, it's pretty useless. The damage, it's horrible. It's extremely inaccurate past like close ranges. And the damage drop-off is also horrible. But it is a cheap craft. I think the Revolver, little Revy boy, we're going to put him down on the D tier, right next to the little MP5. Alright, next, the L96. The L96 is a very fun sniper to use. Nothing brings more psychological horror than someone hearing one of these bad boys cracking off in the distance.
Headshot.
I think that the sound this thing makes gives it an S tier automatically. However, you can't craft them. That's really the only drawback, is that you can't craft them. I love the L96. It's going right next to the S tier. It's going right in the S tier next to the AK. The SAR, the semi-automatic rifle. Now, this is actually a very big favorite of mine as well. Extremely cheap craft. The ammo is great. The damage is good. It's accurate. You can also shoot this thing as fast as you can click. It's overall like a very balanced and good gun. I love the SAR. I think SAR gets an A tier. They're also useful in raiding and stuff. Alright, the Waterpipe shotgun. Now, the Waterpipe, and it's known of me and all my friends as the weapon of mass destruction, because this thing, it destroys. Like, instead of loading the handcrafted shells in them, throw some buckshot in them, and the thing destroys. It's drawn back by long reload, and it's only one-shot capabilities. You gotta shoot and then reload. Those are the drawbacks. Other than that, it's like a cheap craft. It's a very easy blueprint to acquire. I think this is going to go next to the DB. Alright, next we're going to get the Spaz over here. Spaz 12. Now, I'm actually not a big fan of the Spaz 12. It shoots very fast, but in my opinion, it doesn't do as much damage as, say, the DB or the Waterpipe in close ranges. It also cannot be crafted. And I would just say that this is not a good shotgun for what it is, in my opinion. I think that the only thing that this gun is really good for is shooting off incendiary rounds into the sky for a nice light show. So we're going to put them down in E. Next we have another favorite of mine, the LR. Now the LR is definitely, it's up there with the AK. However, it doesn't do as much damage, especially on that first shot that everyone loves. The recoil control's definitely a lot easier than the AK. and it holds the same amount of ammo, shoots the same ammo as the AK. You can't craft the LR, and can only buy them from the dealers. So I think for that, it's not going to get an S tier, but I think it might get an A tier, maybe even a B tier. But at the same time, I don't know. We're going to give the LR A tier. M39. Now, the M39 is probably my least used gun in the game. They're extremely rare from at least what I've seen. I've rarely come across these things, and I feel like every time I find one, I'm still excited to see one because I just never use them. It's a fun gun to use when you have them, but I feel like a SAR is just as good as an M39. And, you know, you don't have to worry about not having to craft them, and they're expensive to buy. I think that the M39, although it's a good rifle, I'm going to put down in the D tier list. The Thompson. The Thompson is hands down, my favorite SMG in the game. I will rock this thing late wipe because I know how to handle it so well. Its recoil pattern, it's easier than the MP5 for sure. Not as easy as the custom. It's somewhere in between. Its rate of fire, it's great. Its damage is great for what it is. And it's a relatively cheap craft. It's a little bit more on the expensive side. But hands down, still the best SMG in the game. I'm putting that right in the A tier. Its only drawback is that it's a little bit more expensive for being an SMG. Crossy. Now, I have a lot of friends that are big fans of the Crossy. However, I'm not a big fan. Mostly because of the reload time. Like, it's about 2 seconds or so of reload. And I feel like that's what makes or breaks a gunfight, and it's going to determine whether or not you win or lose. So I think that I'm going to put the Crossbow down at on the D tier list, because I still prefer the bow, hands down, but I don't think it's as bad as the compound. Last but not least, we have the M249. Now, the M249 is probably the biggest god weapon. You throw a scope, a laser, and you crouch and shoot this thing, there's no recoil. You have to pull down, that's it. No horizontal recoil. The M249, it's rare. You can get them from heli crashes. You can get them from when the heli crashes when you shoot it down. You can also get them from Bradley. However, I feel like it being so rare doesn't really draw back from how much this thing is useful for. Like, this thing tears, and not to mention it sounds like an orgasm. The M249 is definitely an S tier weapon. That completes the S to F tier list for the guns of Rust. As you can see, it's pretty balanced throughout. Not too many guns that are insanely good, not too many guns that are insanely bad. Most of them are located near the middle. And yeah, if you agree with the placement of some guns, let me know. But if you also disagree, let me know which gun you disagree with and where you would personally put it. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this tier list video. And there's going to be plenty more Rust videos in the future. Stay tuned. If you enjoyed this video, though, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.